Beneath the Amazon's dense canopy lies a secret that rewrites human history. For centuries, the idea of a major civilization thriving there seemed impossible. Scholars called it a green desert, a place where only small, nomadic tribes could exist. That story is now crumbling. Groundbreaking discoveries are revealing the traces of a forgotten civilization hidden under the jungle. This journey will show you the stunning scale of their lost cities and the ingenious engineering that made it all possible. By the end, you will understand why the Amazon's past is nothing like the history books taught us. How did millions of people build a society in a rainforest, and why did it vanish so completely? What does their story teach us about our own relationship with the natural world? Are we prepared to see the wilderness not as an empty space, but as a living archive of human achievement? That foundational assumption was called the pristine wilderness myth. For generations, historians and archaeologists looked at the vast Amazon and saw a world untouched by human hands, a place where nature ruled supreme. The dominant idea was that this was a green desert. The soil was too poor, the environment too challenging for anything more than small, scattered groups of hunter-gatherers. These communities were thought to live lightly on the land, leaving no permanent mark. This narrative was powerfully shaped by the first European accounts, written by explorers who saw only dense, impenetrable jungle and interpreted the absence of stone pyramids or grand plazas as proof of an absence of history itself. One influential scholar, Betty Meggers, famously argued that the Amazon's acidic soils were a ceiling on human ambition, preventing the rise of complex societies. Her work suggested that any attempt at large-scale settlement would quickly fail, the land reclaiming everything. This theory became the accepted truth for decades, a lens through which all evidence was filtered. It created a paradox. If you believe a place cannot support a civilization, you will not look for one. You might walk right over the subtle mounds, the strange patterns in the earth, and see only random hills or natural formations. The myth of the pristine wilderness wasn't just an academic idea, it was a blindness. It taught us to see the Amazon as a passive backdrop, rather than an active participant in a human story. But what if the evidence was there all along, waiting for us to ask a different question? What if the signs of a lost world weren't made of stone, but of earth? The first crack in the old theory came from an unexpected source, the sky itself. In the 1970s, as deforestation began to clear large swaths of the Brazilian Amazon for cattle ranches, a startling new pattern emerged. From the ground, the land looked cleared and flat, but from the air, pilots and later satellite imagery revealed something astonishing. Etched into the earth were vast, precise geometric shapes. In the state of Acre, along the border with Bolivia and Peru, hundreds of these enormous earthworks lay hidden just beneath the thin topsoil and grass. They are called geoglyphs, and they changed everything. These are not random mounds. They are deliberate, intricate designs dug into the claypan soil, forming perfect circles, precise squares, and complex octagons. Some of these figures are immense, over 300 meters across. To put that in perspective, you could fit 3 football fields inside a single one of these earthworks. They are not hills, they are ditches and embankments, creating raised pathways and sunken enclosures that form these colossal shapes. For centuries, the jungle had kept this secret, its roots and foliage masking the lines. Only when the trees were gone could the full scale of the design be seen. And what a design it is! The geoglyphs are laid out with a clear sense of geometry and order. They are not haphazard. They speak of planning, of a shared vision executed across a vast landscape. Their purpose remains one of the great mysteries. They were not towns, as archaeologists found very few artifacts or signs of daily life inside them. They were not fortifications, as the ditches are on the inside of the embankments, which would be a strange way to build a defensive wall. The leading theory is that these were spaces for ceremony, for gathering, perhaps even for astronomical observation. Imagine these cleared, sculpted plazas, hosting hundreds or thousands of people for rituals that connected the community to the land and the cosmos. They are a physical testament to a shared belief system, a cultural glue that held people together. The dating of these sites is crucial. They were built and used over a span of more than 1,000 years, with the oldest constructions beginning around 2,000 years ago and activity continuing until roughly 650 years before the present. This timeline proves without a doubt that large, organized, and settled communities were shaping the Amazon long before any European ship arrived on the horizon. This was not a green desert. It was a managed, engineered landscape. The very existence of the geoglyphs demands a new understanding. To coordinate the labor for such projects, to feed the workers, to plan the layouts, required a level of social organization far beyond small, nomadic bands. It suggests leaders, specialists, and a society with a surplus of resources and time. These silent lines in the earth are the first monumental whisper from a forgotten world, a declaration that someone was here, someone with vision, and they were shaping their environment on a grand scale. But if these were the gathering places, where did everyone live? The geoglyphs pointed to a society, but they did not show its heart. That discovery would come from a different kind of trace in the soil, one that revealed not just ceremony, but the very foundation of Amazonian life. The geoglyphs were a stunning announcement, but they were only the ceremonial architecture. The true scale of this lost society emerged when archaeologists began to look for where people actually lived. Their search led to a different kind of discovery in the upper Tapajos Basin, a region that revealed not just villages, but an entire urban network woven into the fabric of the forest itself. Here, researchers uncovered clusters of settlements that defy our traditional image of a city. These were not dense, crowded metropolises of stone. Instead, they were sprawling, interconnected communities, a form of low-density urbanism that some scholars now call garden cities. Picture a series of fortified villages, each one a hub of activity, surrounded by a landscape that was anything but wild. Radiating out from these hubs were straight, sunken roads built below the forest floor, connecting settlement to settlement like the spokes of a wheel. These were not mere footpaths. They were engineered thoroughfares, evidence of planned infrastructure and regular travel between communities that formed a larger, coordinated society. The settlements themselves were surrounded by a profoundly modified environment. Artificial mounds provided raised ground for homes and ceremonies. Carefully dug ponds managed water and likely supported aquatic life. But the most telling clue of all is found in the very soil beneath their feet, a substance known as Terra, Preta, or dark earth. This is not ordinary rainforest soil. It is a human-made super soil, incredibly fertile and rich in charcoal, organic waste, and pottery fragments. It was created intentionally over generations by the people who lived there. They were not just living in the forest, they were cultivating it, enriching it, building a foundation for long-term prosperity. This is the genius of the Amazonian model. The garden city was a sustainable system where settlement, agriculture, and forest management blended seamlessly. People lived within a productive, park-like landscape. They tended orchards of fruit and nut trees, cultivated useful palms, and managed the growth of the forest around them to provide food, medicine, and materials. The dark earth acted as a permanent garden plot, allowing for intensive cultivation right where people lived, without the need to constantly clear new land. This challenges a deeply held Eurocentric idea. We often define a civilization by its monuments of stone, by its crowded streets and centralized power. The Amazon reveals a different blueprint. Here, a civilization expressed its complexity through a distributed network, through ecological engineering, and through a profound understanding of how to thrive within a tropical ecosystem without conquering it. The Garden Cities show us a society that was both vast and intimately connected to its home, a society that built its legacy not in towering pyramids, but in fertile soil and managed forests. Yet, this sophisticated system raises a profound and haunting question. If these communities were so successful, so deeply rooted and ingeniously adapted, what could possibly have happened to make them vanish? The dense canopy that had guarded these secrets for centuries finally met its match in the sky. A revolutionary technology has peeled back the leafy veil, allowing us to see the Amazon's past with a clarity once thought impossible. This tool is called Lidar, short for light detection and ranging. Imagine flying a small plane over an endless sea of green. From below, it is an impenetrable blanket of leaves and vines. But from the aircraft, a device sends down hundreds of thousands of laser pulses every second. These pulses penetrate the tiny gaps in the foliage, hit the ground, and bounce back. By measuring the time it takes for each pulse to return, a computer can build a staggeringly detailed, three-dimensional map of the true ground surface, digitally stripping away every single tree. It is, in essence, giving the jungle an X-ray. What Lidar has revealed, particularly in the Llanos de Mojos region of the Bolivian Amazon, is nothing short of a paradigm shift. The ground, which looked flat and natural to the naked eye, is in fact an ancient, engineered masterpiece. The scans show an intricate web of straight, raised causeways connecting settlements, sometimes running for dozens of miles. They reveal precise geometric patterns of canals and reservoirs, designed for water management and perhaps even aquaculture. They show countless artificial mounds and platforms, the foundations for homes, plazas, and ceremonial structures. Before Lidar, an archaeologist might spend a lifetime painstakingly surveying a single village site. Now, in a single flight, they can map an area the size of a modern city and see the complete urban plan of a lost civilization. This technology has moved the search from a slow, ground-level puzzle to a breathtaking aerial revelation. It proved beyond any doubt that human modification of the Amazon was not occasional or small-scale. It was systematic, continental, and profound. The jungle we perceived as wilderness is, in truth, an overgrown garden, a landscape shaped by human hands on a scale that rivals the well-known civilizations of the ancient world. Lidar did not just find a few more lost cities. It revealed that the cities were never truly lost, only hidden. They were part of a living, connected network, a testament to a society that organized its entire world. This revelation of sheer scale makes the civilization's disappearance all the more urgent a mystery. What could disrupt a society so widespread, so deeply integrated into its environment? The answer may lie in the very ground they so carefully enriched and in a shadow that arrived from across the ocean. The Lidar maps of the Llanos de Mojos are a window into a forgotten world of staggering ambition. Here, the technology revealed the full glory of the Casarabe culture, a society that flourished between the years 500 and 1400. What appeared to be empty, seasonally flooded savanna was in fact the heartland of a sophisticated civilization. The scans pinpointed two colossal urban centers, Landivar and Kotoka. These were not mere towns, they were carefully planned metropolises built on a scale that forces us to rethink everything about the Amazon's past. At their core stood monumental architecture that would feel at home in other ancient cultures. Stepped platform pyramids, some towering over 20 meters high, dominated the landscape. Imagine earthen structures of that magnitude, their broad bases and ascending levels creating a powerful silhouette against the flat plains. Arranged around vast, open plazas were U-shaped buildings, their forms suggesting specific ceremonial or administrative functions. The entire complex was designed with intention, a clear statement of power and communal identity, but the sophistication did not stop at the city center. Each of these major hubs was encircled by a series of concentric moats and ramparts. These were not just simple ditches, they were integrated defensive and water management systems, controlling access and protecting the community from the seasonal floods that define this region. This reveals a deep understanding of hydraulic engineering. The Casarabe people were not at the mercy of their environment. They were actively reshaping it to serve their needs. Perhaps the most telling feature of all was the connective tissue that bound this society together. Radiating out from Landivar and Kotoka like spokes from a wheel was an extensive network of straight, raised causeways. These elevated roads built above the floodplain stretched for kilometers in perfectly straight lines, linking the major centers to a constellation of smaller subsidiary settlements. This is the signature of a regional polity, a coordinated society with centralized planning. The ability to mobilize labor to build these long-distance highways, the pyramids, and the massive earthworks points to a level of social organization and authority that rivals classic models of civilization. The Casarabe culture represents a peak of pre-Columbian complexity in the Amazon. They created a landscape of cities, canals, and roads, a testament to human ingenuity in a challenging environment. Their story shows us that the ancient Amazon was not a blank space on the map, but a vibrant tapestry of interconnected communities. Yet this revelation makes their ultimate fate even more compelling. A society this resilient, this deeply rooted in its engineered landscape, does not simply choose to disappear. Something profound must have shifted the very foundation of their world. The true foundation of this lost world was not stone but soil. To build their sprawling garden cities and monumental earthworks, the people of the Amazon first had to solve the most fundamental challenge of their environment, the thin, acidic, nutrient-poor earth that defines the rainforest floor. The conventional wisdom said large-scale, permanent agriculture here was impossible. They proved it wrong with one of history's most ingenious and enduring inventions, Amazonian dark earth known as Terra Preta. Scattered across the basin like fertile islands in a green sea, these patches of soil are a stark contrast to the surrounding yellow earth. They are deep, rich, and black, teeming with life and nutrients. For a long time, their origin was a mystery, a natural anomaly. We now know they are anything but natural. These are human-made super soils, the engineered bedrock of an entire civilization. The creation of Terra Preta was a masterclass in sustainable technology. It began with a process we now call biochar. Communities would gather organic waste, everything from food scraps and plant matter to fish bones and palm fronds. They would smolder this material in low oxygen conditions, a slow, controlled burn that produced charcoal rather than ash. This charcoal was then deliberately mixed into the soil, along with fragments of broken pottery, compost, and manure. Think of it as a recipe carefully followed over generations. The charcoal acted like a microscopic sponge, locking nutrients and moisture into the ground and providing a perfect home for beneficial microbes and fungi. The pottery shards helped with drainage and aeration. The result was a living, self-regenerating soil that could retain its fertility for centuries, even millennia. This was not casual gardening. It was a sophisticated, systematic form of waste management and agroforestry. It transformed unproductive land into permanent, highly productive garden plots. These dark earth islands allowed for intensive cultivation of maize, squash, manioc, and fruit trees, right where people lived. They provided the reliable food surplus necessary to support large, settled populations, to feed the laborers building geoglyphs and pyramids, and to sustain the specialists and leaders of a complex society. Terra Preta is the quiet, humble engine that powered the Amazon's hidden civilization. It represents a profound philosophical shift in how we view ancient people. They were not passive inhabitants of a challenging world. They were active engineers of their own prosperity. They did not simply take from the land, they entered into a partnership with it, enhancing its capacity to support life. This ancient innovation holds a startling relevance for us today, as modern science races to understand and replicate its secrets for sustainable agriculture. Yet, this brilliant adaptation also frames the civilization's greatest tragedy. They had built a world that worked in harmony with the forest, a system designed for the long term. So what force could possibly have been powerful enough to break that harmony and silence the garden cities for good? The answer lies in an unseen arrival, one that carried a change far more devastating than any flood or drought. The ingenuity of the Amazon's people extended deep into the water itself. While Terra Preta transformed the land, another equally brilliant innovation mastered the rhythms of the rivers and rains. Across the basin, from the seasonal floodplains of Bolivia to the perpetually wet forests, archaeologists are uncovering evidence of a forgotten hydraulic civilization. These communities did not see water as a threat to be endured, but as a resource to be sculpted. They built intricate networks of canals, some wide enough for canoes, that served as highways for transport and arteries for irrigation, directing life-giving water to their fields and settlements. In areas prone to months of flooding, they constructed vast complexes of raised fields. These were not simple mounds, but carefully engineered platforms of earth built up above the waterline. Farmers could tend their crops of maize, squash, and manioc on these fertile islands, even as the waters rose around them, effectively creating permanent farmland in the middle of a temporary lake. But perhaps the most elegant solution was their approach to protein. Scattered among these settlements are countless artificial ponds, depressions dug and shaped by human hands. Researchers believe these were sophisticated aquaculture systems, managed fisheries where communities could raise fish like poku and tambaqui. They were not just catching food, they were farming it, ensuring a stable and renewable supply. The scale of this hydroengineering reaches its peak in the Bolivian Beni region. Here, the landscape is etched with massive, zigzagging causeways, earthworks that stretch for miles. For a long time, their purpose was a mystery. Why build such elaborate, winding paths? The answer reveals a breathtaking synergy with the seasons. During the annual floods, these causeways did not simply function as roads. They acted as giant fish weirs. As water covered the plains, fish would swim into the labyrinth of channels created by the raised embankments. When the waters receded, the fish would be trapped in ponds and channels behind the earthworks, creating a bountiful, concentrated harvest. It was a seasonal gift, meticulously planned for and built into the very infrastructure of the society. This was not just adaptation, it was a form of ecological symphony. The people listened to the pulse of their environment, the flood and the drought, the dry land and the rising river, and they composed a response that turned potential disaster into abundance. Their canals, raised fields, and fish weirs were the instruments. This mastery of water did more than just provide food and safety. It enabled the very existence of their urban life. It was the public works project that sustained thousands, a testament to collective planning and a deep, practical wisdom. They looked at a challenging, dynamic ecosystem and saw not a wilderness to be conquered, but a partner to be understood. Their legacy is a powerful reminder that civilization is not defined by fighting nature, but by learning to dance with its rhythms. Yet, for all its resilience and cleverness, this intricate dance was vulnerable to a partner it never saw coming, a force that arrived silently and struck at the very heart of their connected world. The scale of their earthworks tells a story of numbers. To build the pyramids of Kotoka, to dig the vast geoglyphs of Acre, to lay down the straight causeways that stretched to the horizon, required a workforce of thousands, sustained over generations. This simple, logistical truth has led archaeologists to a staggering conclusion. The pre-Columbian Amazon was not a sparsely populated wilderness. At its height, it may have been home to millions of people. This is not a fringe idea, but a serious scholarly estimate that fundamentally rewrites the demographic history of the Americas. Think of the implications. Millions of individuals living, farming, trading, and building across this immense landscape. Their collective footprint was so vast that the very composition of the forest we see today, with its abundance of fruit and nut trees, is likely a living legacy of their ancient orchards and managed groves. Supporting a population of that magnitude required more than just clever farming. It demanded a sophisticated social engine. The exact political shape of these societies remains a fascinating puzzle. Were they a patchwork of powerful chiefdoms, each ruling over a network of garden cities? Or perhaps small, independent kingdoms centered on places like Lidar, with their monumental cores? The evidence points less to a single, centralized empire like the Inca, and more to a constellation of allied or competing polities, sharing a common cultural toolkit of earth-moving and landscape engineering. What is undeniable is the presence of hierarchy and organization. The coordination needed to plan a 300-meter-wide geometric earthwork, or to mobilize laborers to pile earth into a 20-meter-high pyramid, does not happen by committee. It requires leaders, planners, and specialists. It suggests a society where labor was directed, where resources were managed, and where certain individuals or families held positions of authority. The monuments themselves are the clearest testament to this social structure. The stepped platforms and U-shaped buildings were not communal housing. They were stages for power. These spaces, likely used for ceremonies that connected the community to ancestors and spirits, also reinforced the status of the elites who presided over them. The ideological system that motivated people to contribute their labor was the glue that held society together. It transformed a massive public works project into a sacred duty, a collective act of faith and identity. This paints a picture of a dynamic, stratified world, vibrant with ritual and purpose. It was a world of farmers and fishers, of engineers and priests, all interconnected by canals and causeways, all participating in a shared project of building a civilization in harmony with the forest. Yet, this intricate social fabric, woven over more than 1,000 years, would prove terrifyingly fragile when faced with a threat it could never have engineered a defense against. Their world was a masterpiece of balance, but its greatest strength became its ultimate vulnerability. The very interconnectedness that allowed their civilization to flourish, the networks of roads and trade that linked garden cities across vast distances, created a perfect highway for an invisible enemy. When the first European ships made landfall on the coasts of the Americas, they carried more than explorers and soldiers. They carried pathogens entirely new to the indigenous populations, diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza. These illnesses had ravaged the Old World for centuries, leaving survivors with a degree of immunity. For the people of the Americas who had never been exposed, they were biological wildfires. Historical records and modern research suggest a terrifying scenario. These diseases did not wait for face-to-face contact. They likely traveled far ahead of the explorers themselves, passed along trade routes from community to community. A trader from the coast, unknowingly infected, could carry the virus into the heart of the continent. In a society of millions living in close-knit, interconnected settlements, the spread would have been devastatingly fast and efficient. The results are almost beyond comprehension. Within a few generations, populations that had thrived for over a millennium could have been reduced by 90% or more. We are talking about a loss of life so immense it defies the scale of any war or natural disaster in recorded history. Imagine the social and cultural unraveling that would follow. The intricate knowledge of hydraulics, the seasonal rituals tied to the fish weirs, the communal labor needed to maintain the causeways and enrich the Terra, Preta, all of this resided in the minds and traditions of the people. As elders, engineers, and farmers succumbed, that knowledge died with them. The surviving fragments of society, reeling from unimaginable loss, would have been unable to sustain the complex, labor-intensive systems their ancestors built. The raised fields would have silted up, the canals would have clogged with vegetation. The great ceremonial platforms, once vibrant centers of community life, would have fallen silent. While disease is the dominant explanation, it may not have been the only factor. Some researchers point to evidence of significant climate shifts during this period, including prolonged droughts that could have strained even their ingenious water management systems. Internal social pressures or conflict between groups, perhaps exacerbated by the strain of a changing environment, might have also played a part, but these were likely secondary blows, falling upon a society already brought to its knees by biological catastrophe. The most haunting aspect of this disappearance is its completeness. By the time European chroniclers finally ventured deep into the Amazon in the 16th and 17th centuries, they saw only what their preconceptions allowed them to see: a lush, seemingly empty wilderness dotted with small, scattered tribes. The great urban networks were already ghosts, their mounds and plazas swallowed by a fast-growing forest that quickly hid all traces of human endeavor. The civilization had not just collapsed, it had been forgotten, its memory erased so thoroughly that its very existence became a myth. All that remained were the subtle, silent clues, the dark earth gardens and the geometric shapes hidden under the canopy, waiting centuries for someone to look at the land with new eyes and ask a different question. This raises a profound and unsettling thought about our own world. The silence left by the great earthworks is not complete. The most profound legacy of the Amazon's forgotten builders may not lie buried in the soil, but living in the knowledge of the people who still call this forest home. While the grand political structures and city networks vanished, a river of cultural and technological wisdom never fully ran dry. Many contemporary indigenous groups, from the Kayapo in Brazil to the Cuicuro in the Xingu region, are the direct descendants of these ancient societies. Their daily practices are not primitive survivals, they are living libraries, preserving and adapting the genius of their ancestors. When a Kayapo elder teaches how to create a new patch of fertile dark earth by carefully burning and mixing organic materials, they are performing a technology thousands of years old. When the Cuicuro manage their forest gardens, selecting which trees to encourage and which plants to cultivate, they are applying a sophisticated form of agroforestry that shaped the very biodiversity of the Amazon. This is not a coincidence, it is continuity. These communities did not arrive after the civilization fell. They are the civilization, transformed by unimaginable hardship but unbroken in their deep connection to the land. Their knowledge of plant properties, of fish cycles, of soil alchemy, represents a direct thread back to the engineers of the geoglyphs and the builders of the garden cities. This understanding fundamentally shifts the narrative. It challenges the romantic but misleading idea of a civilization that was utterly lost, as if it were a separate chapter with no bearing on the present. Instead, we see a story of incredible resilience. In the face of cataclysm, these communities preserved the core of their world, the practical wisdom that allowed life to continue. They adapted their social scale but held onto the ecological principles that ensured survival. Their stewardship shows us that the ancient Amazonians were not just builders of monuments, but custodians of an entire ecosystem. This living legacy is now recognized as one of the most vital archives of human ingenuity on the planet. Scientists and ecologists work alongside indigenous knowledge holders, learning how to enrich degraded soils, how to cultivate forests without destroying them, and how to see the natural world as a partner rather than a resource. The descendants of the pyramid builders hold keys to sustainable living that the modern world is only beginning to comprehend. Their continuity offers a humbling lesson. that the greatest monuments a civilization can leave behind are not always made of earth or stone, but are carried in memory, in practice, and in a respectful dialogue with the living world. The old explorer journals, long shelved as works of fantasy, are whispering a different story. For centuries, the most sensational reports from the Amazon were dismissed as the fevered dreams of men lost in a green hell. Take the account of Friar Gaspar de Carvajal, who accompanied the Spanish explorer Francisco de Orellana on the first European voyage down the Amazon River in 1542. Carvajal wrote of densely populated riverbanks, of large villages that stretched for miles, of well-traveled roads leading inland from the water's edge. Most famously, he described an encounter with a society led by powerful female warriors, a tale that gave the river its name and was largely relegated to myth. Historians and archaeologists, armed with the pristine wilderness theory, read these passages and saw only hyperbole or outright fabrication. They reasoned that the jungle could not support such settlements, so the chroniclers must have been mistaken or lying to glorify their journey. But with the Lidar maps now before us and the dark earth beneath our feet, we have to ask a startling question: what if they were telling the truth? The timeline is crucial. Orellana's expedition came just decades after the first European contact with the Americas. The catastrophic waves of disease would have already been racing ahead of him, traveling along those very trade routes he described. What Carvajal and his companions may have witnessed were not the thriving cities at their peak, but the fading echoes of them. They might have sailed past communities already hollowed out by illness, their populations a fraction of what they once were, yet still organized enough to maintain cleared fields, riverbank villages, and visible roads. The powerful female leader he spoke of could have been a ruler of one of these still-functioning polities, a glimpse of the social complexity that once defined the region. These texts are no longer just adventure stories. They have become fragile, fragmented ethnographic records, like a handful of blurry photographs taken just as the subject was vanishing. They capture a world in painful transition, caught between its ancient grandeur and a silent, unstoppable unraveling. Re-examining these accounts with our new understanding forces a profound shift in perspective. It asks us to extend a measure of credibility to voices we once silenced, to see their words not as fantasy, but as the last, fleeting testimony to a living civilization. This reconciliation of text and earth invites a deeper reflection on how history itself is written, and what we choose to believe when the evidence contradicts our deepest assumptions. This revelation forces us to reconsider the very nature of the jungle itself. The staggering diversity of the Amazon, long held up as the ultimate example of pristine nature, might carry a profound human signature. There is a growing and revolutionary idea that much of this celebrated biodiversity is not purely wild, but a living legacy of ancient cultivation. It is a biodiversity paradox where the hand of humanity may have nurtured rather than diminished the richness of the forest. Consider the distribution of some of the Amazon's most iconic and useful trees. The mighty Brazil nut tree, the cocoa tree that gives us chocolate, the acai palm prized for its fruit. These species are not scattered randomly. Their highest concentrations are often found precisely around ancient archaeological sites and patches of that fertile, human-made Terra Preta soil. This is not a coincidence. It is a pattern written into the landscape. For generations, these communities practiced a sophisticated form of forest gardening. They did not clear-cut vast fields. Instead, they selectively cultivated, protected, and dispersed the trees that were most valuable for food, medicine, tools, and construction. They would clear small openings in the canopy, plant their staple crops like manioc, and around the edges, they would encourage the growth of these beneficial trees. Over centuries and millennia, this active management reshaped the forest composition. They were not passive foragers, they were active domesticators of their environment, guiding the forest toward a state that better served human needs while maintaining its complex structure. The so-called virgin rainforest we marvel at today may, in many areas, be better understood as a vast, abandoned garden. It is a testament to millennia of human selection and care, a garden that continued to grow and evolve long after its original gardeners were gone. This understanding completely overturns a traditional conservation paradigm. We have often framed the story as a stark choice between human presence and natural preservation, seeing people as an inherent threat to biodiversity. The Amazon's hidden history suggests a different, more hopeful model. It shows that human societies can be deeply intertwined with their ecosystems, acting as keystone species that actually enhance ecological richness through their practices. Their legacy is not one of destruction, but of deliberate generational enrichment. This ancient partnership holds profound implications for how we approach the future of the Amazon and forests worldwide. It suggests that the most sustainable path forward may not be about walling nature off from people, but about rediscovering and supporting those forms of intelligent, reciprocal management. The forest itself, in its dazzling variety, may be the greatest monument the civilization ever built, a living library cultivated by forgotten hands. Uncovering this lost world is a race against the jungle itself. The very environment that sustained this civilization also conspires to erase its memory, presenting archaeologists with a set of challenges unlike any other. The first and most formidable is the soil. The Amazon's earth is famously acidic, a condition that acts like a slow, universal solvent on organic material. Wooden posts that once held up homes, woven baskets, cotton textiles, and even human remains, all of these decompose with startling speed in this environment. After a few centuries, almost nothing organic is left. What survives are the durable fragments, the ceramic potsherds, and the occasional stone axe head. It means the archaeological record is profoundly silent on the intimate details of daily life, the clothing people wore, the tools they carved from wood, the very faces of the individuals who built this world. The forest itself is a relentless custodian. Fast-growing vegetation can swallow a raised earth platform or fill an ancient canal in a matter of decades, masking human construction under a seamless green blanket. And the sheer, overwhelming scale of the Amazon, with its remote river systems and dense undergrowth, makes traditional foot surveys a monumental, often dangerous undertaking. A team could spend months hacking through a single square kilometer and miss a crucial earthwork hidden just a few meters away. This is precisely why Lidar has been nothing short of revolutionary. By seeing through the canopy, it provides the blueprint, allowing researchers to pinpoint exactly where to look, transforming a needle in a haystack search into a targeted investigation. But the map from the sky is only the beginning. On the ground, scientists have become forensic detectives of the soil. They employ sophisticated methods like analyzing the chemical signatures in Terra Preta to understand its composition. They search for phytoliths, microscopic silica skeletons left behind by plants. These tiny, indestructible time capsules can reveal exactly which crops were cultivated: maize, squash, palms, even when not a single seed has survived. Each excavation is an act of meticulous reconstruction, piecing together a vibrant society from the fragments it left behind. Every discovery is hard-won, a testament to patience and innovation, requiring a delicate dance between satellite technology and the careful scrape of a trowel. It is a reminder that we are not just finding a lost civilization, we are patiently convincing a reluctant jungle to give up its deepest secrets, one handful of dark earth at a time. The civilizations we know best often rose from stone. The Inca carved their empire from Andean mountains, the Maya built limestone cities that scraped the jungle canopy, and the Egyptians raised pyramids from desert bedrock. Their legacies are written in granite and marble, materials that shout their permanence across millennia. The Amazonian achievement whispers instead, written in a different language entirely, the language of the living earth. This comparison is not about ranking greatness, but about expanding our very definition of what a civilization can be. Where others centralized power in towering citadels, the Amazonian model flourished through a network, a constellation of garden cities connected by causeways across a managed landscape. Their monumentality was not vertical, aiming for the sky, but horizontal, woven into the fabric of the forest itself. Instead of quarrying stone, they sculpted the soil itself, building pyramids from clay and shaping the land into vast geometric plazas. Their agricultural genius offers another stark contrast. The classic image of ancient farming is the open field, the wheat terrace, the rice paddy, a clear division between human settlement and wild nature. The Amazonians rejected that division. Their system was one of integration, of enriching the forest floor itself to create permanent, fertile gardens. They farmed the forest not by clearing it, but by carefully curating it, transforming it into a productive, park-like orchard that provided food, medicine, and materials for generations. This reveals a breathtaking diversity in the human story. Faced with the challenge of building a complex society, humanity did not find one single answer. We invented many. The Amazonian pathway was a profound alternative, a demonstration that socio-political complexity could be achieved without rigid centralization, without monumental architecture in traditional stone, and without conquering the natural world. It was a form of civilization built on reciprocity with the environment, a sustainable model that lasted for over 1,000 years. Recognizing this does not diminish the pyramids of Giza or the roads of the Inca. It enriches our global tapestry. It proves that human ingenuity is not a single thread, but a brilliant weave of different patterns, each adapted to its unique ecological and cultural niche. The forgotten civilization of the Amazon compels us to ask a new set of questions, not just about the past, but about the possible futures we might imagine. The environment was their blueprint. This forgotten civilization did not simply exist in the Amazon, it was sculpted by it, a direct and brilliant response to the land's unique demands. The annual heartbeat of the rivers, the flood and the drought, the patchy distribution of fertile soil, these were not obstacles to overcome but parameters to design within. Every innovation, from the grandest earthwork to the smallest garden plot, emerged from a deep, intimate conversation with the living world. Societies evolved distinct identities based on their specific ecological address. In the fertile Varzea, the seasonally flooded plains along major rivers, life pulsed with the water's rhythm. Here, communities mastered aquatic engineering, building those raised fields and intricate fish weirs to harvest abundance from the floodwaters. Their world was one of canals and managed ponds, a society organized around the predictable, nourishing pulse of the river. In contrast, the Terra firma, the vast upland forests away from the major waterways, presented a different set of rules. Here, the challenge was not too much water but poor soil. The response was the creation of Terra Preta, the dark earth islands that transformed barren ground into permanent, productive gardens. These upland settlements likely emphasized forest management, cultivating orchards of fruit and nut trees within the canopy itself. This environmental determinism was not a limitation, but a catalyst for genius. It forced a kind of innovation that was deeply sustainable because it had to be. You could not exhaust the river or deplete the thin soil, not if you wanted your grandchildren to thrive. So they invented systems that worked with the cycles, not against them. The fish weirs did not overfish, they harvested a seasonal surplus. The dark earth did not degrade, it regenerated. Their agriculture was not extractive, it was additive, enriching the very foundation of their world. This is perhaps their most profound lesson. Their story is not one of humanity conquering a wild frontier, but of a civilization learning to listen. They heard the rhythm of the floods and composed their cities in time with it. They understood the poverty of the soil and taught it how to become rich. They did not see a wilderness to be tamed, but a partner to be understood. In an age where our relationship with the natural world is so often defined by dominance and depletion, their legacy offers a different model, a testament to the possibility of a symbiotic civilization, engineered not for extraction but for enduring harmony. For every discovery made in this lost world, a dozen deeper mysteries open up. The vast geometric geoglyphs, those silent circles and squares etched into the earth, still guard their primary secret. Were they sacred ceremonial grounds, spaces for grand communal gatherings that unified distant communities under a shared sky? Or could they have served a more practical, astronomical purpose, their alignments marking solstices or celestial events to guide planting and ritual cycles? Without written records, their true function remains a captivating puzzle, a question whispered by the very shape of the land. We can walk their embankments, but we cannot hear the chants or see the ceremonies that once brought them to life. This silence extends to the most intimate aspects of their culture. What language did these millions of people speak? What stories did they tell about the creation of the world or the meaning of the annual flood? Their belief system is a ghost in the archaeological record, hinted at by the orientation of their monuments and the artifacts placed in memorial sites, but its full texture and nuance are lost to us. We see the physical framework of their spirituality in the pyramids and plazas, but the philosophy that animated those spaces is a profound and echoing absence. The scale of their interactions is another enduring enigma. How far did their trade networks reach? Did canoes laden with precious stones, exotic feathers, or crafted goods travel thousands of kilometers along the river highways? There is tantalizing, though not yet conclusive, evidence that could link them to the well-known civilizations of the Andes. Could there have been a flow of ideas, or even goods, between the Amazonian garden cities and the highland empires? The political landscape is equally opaque. Were sites like Landivar and Kotoka the capitals of rival kingdoms, or nodes in a confederation of allied chiefdoms? Did they cooperate, compete, or even engage in conflict? The earthworks show coordination, but they do not reveal the nature of the power that orchestrated it. Perhaps the greatest mystery of all lies in the vast, uncharted expanses of the rainforest itself. Only a tiny fraction of the Amazon basin has been surveyed with Lidar or studied by archaeologists on the ground. Millions of square kilometers remain a complete blank on our historical map. Every new aerial survey is a leap into the unknown, with the genuine potential to reveal another urban center, another network of causeways that could dwarf everything we have found so far. This field of study is in a thrilling state of becoming, where each answered question immediately spawns several new ones. The story of the Amazon is being written in real time, with every scan and every excavation. It ensures that this immense green world will remain one of archaeology's final frontiers, a place where our understanding of the human past is not settled history, but an ongoing, exhilarating discovery, forever promising to reshape the narrative we tell about ourselves. The thrill of uncovering a lost world comes with a profound responsibility. As LiDAR maps reveal ancient cities and researchers race to decode the secrets of the Terra Preta, we must pause and ask a vital question: who owns this story? The lands being surveyed are not empty scientific laboratories. They are the living, ancestral territories of contemporary indigenous peoples, the direct descendants of the very civilization we are so eager to study. This reality places modern archaeology at a critical ethical crossroads. For too long, the field has been shadowed by a practice known as parachute science, where external researchers descend on a region, extract data and artifacts, and depart, leaving little benefit for the local communities whose heritage was examined. This approach treats the past as a detached academic puzzle, severing the living cultural thread that connects ancient earthworks to present-day knowledge holders. In the Amazon, where the forest itself is a cultural archive, such extraction is not just unethical, it is scientifically incomplete. The true meaning of a geoglyph's alignment or the purpose of a ceremonial mound may be preserved in oral histories passed down for generations, knowledge that exists only within the community. Ethical archaeology, therefore, requires a fundamental shift from a model of extraction to one of partnership. This means collaborative research designed and conducted with indigenous communities, not merely about them. It requires sharing authority from the very beginning, integrating traditional knowledge with technological survey, and ensuring that discoveries are interpreted with cultural sensitivity. The benefits of research must flow both ways, supporting education, cultural preservation, and the community's own goals. Furthermore, findings hold a powerful double edge. While they celebrate the deep history and ingenuity of indigenous ancestors, they can also be misused. Evidence of past large-scale settlement could be twisted to support modern political or economic agendas, like land claims or arguments for development that contradict the wishes of current inhabitants. The story of a lost civilization must never be used to imply that the land was ever truly empty or that contemporary peoples are not its rightful stewards. The most respectful and revealing archaeology in the Amazon will be a dialogue, a partnership between satellite technology and ancestral memory, between trowels and tradition. It recognizes that the ultimate authority on this past does not rest in a distant university, but with the communities for whom this history is not lost at all, but a living, breathing foundation of their identity and their future. This race to uncover the past is now running directly against a clock of modern destruction. The very jungle that acted as a protective blanket for 1,000 years is being stripped away at a staggering pace, and with it goes the physical record of this civilization. Deforestation, driven by large-scale agriculture, logging, and mining, is not just an environmental crisis. It is an act of historical erasure happening in real time. A bulldozer clearing land for a soy field does not distinguish between a natural hill and a 2,000-year-old ceremonial platform. It flattens both in an instant. The controlled burns that clear the undergrowth can incinerate the fragile layers of ancient dark earth, wiping out the chemical signature of centuries of human innovation. Looters searching for artifacts to sell on the black market dig haphazard pits through burial and memorial sites, scattering and destroying context that is more valuable to science than any single object. Every hectare of forest that falls may contain an undiscovered geoglyph, the layout of a forgotten garden city, or a unique patch of engineered soil. These are not renewable resources. Once destroyed, that chapter of the human story is closed forever, its lessons permanently silenced. This creates a heartbreaking paradox. The technology that allows us to finally see these sites, the satellite imagery and Lidar, also provides a devastatingly clear view of the threats closing in on them. We can now watch in high resolution as the geometric lines of an ancient earthwork are intersected by the straight, harsh lines of new roads and property boundaries. The race has shifted from a slow search to a desperate rescue mission. Archaeological conservation has become an urgent, integral part of the broader fight to save the Amazon itself. Protecting this heritage is about more than preserving the past. It is about safeguarding a vital library of human knowledge. The lost civilization demonstrated a model of sustainable, large-scale living within the rainforest. Its remnants hold practical data on agroforestry, soil science, and water management that could inform sustainable solutions for the future. To burn these answers before we have even fully understood the questions is a profound loss for all of humanity. The conflict is stark. A civilization that mastered harmony with its environment is now being obliterated by practices that represent its exact opposite. The tools of discovery are evolving faster than the jungle can hide its secrets. We stand at the edge of a new era where the next generation of technology promises to read the Amazon's landscape not just as a map of structures, but as a living manuscript of history. The first revolution came from Lidar, but that was only the beginning. The next step is Lidar with unprecedented resolution and scale. Imagine sensors so precise they can detect the subtle rise of a single ancient footpath or the outline of a forgotten garden plot, and platforms that can scan entire river basins in a single campaign. This will transform our view from recognizing major cities to understanding the connective tissue between them, revealing the true scale of this networked world. But the view from above is only one perspective. To understand the intimate details, we must look closer. On the ground, tools like ground-penetrating radar will act as subterranean scouts, sending signals deep into the earth to locate hearths, storage pits, and the foundations of wooden structures long since dissolved. Drones equipped with advanced photogrammetry will create hyper-detailed, three-dimensional models of excavation sites, allowing researchers to virtually walk through a digital reconstruction of a plaza as it stood centuries ago. Perhaps the most transformative frontier lies not in how we see, but in how we interpret. The sheer volume of data from these wide-scale LiDAR surveys is immense. This is where artificial intelligence enters the story. Researchers are training machine learning algorithms to scan these digital landscapes automatically, teaching them to recognize the signature shapes of human earthworks amidst natural features. This digital assistant could one day flag potential sites across thousands of square miles, guiding human experts to discoveries they might otherwise miss in a lifetime of searching. Yet the most intimate revelations may come from the soil itself. A groundbreaking technique analyzes ancient environmental DNA or sediment DNA trapped in layers of earth. By studying these microscopic genetic fragments, scientists can reconstruct a lost biosphere from a single soil core. They could identify the exact species of maize, squash, or fruit trees cultivated in a Terra Preta garden. They might detect the genetic traces of the fish that swam in managed ponds or the palms that were selectively encouraged. This technology could even reveal the microbial makeup of the soil itself, offering clues about the health of the ancient ecosystem. In a more profound application, scientists are exploring the possibility of recovering traces of human gut microbiomes from latrine sediments. This could open a window into ancient diets, health, and even the microbial companions that lived within the people themselves. We are moving from mapping monuments to reconstructing life. The future promises a holistic portrait where we will know not only where a community built their ceremonial platform, but what they ate for breakfast, which crops they prized, and how they shaped the very biological fabric of their world. This is the promise to hear the whisper of daily life from the silent earth, and finally meet the people of the lost Amazon not as abstract builders, but as living, breathing neighbors in time. The textbooks we grew up with are already out of date. For generations, the story of the Americas before European contact was told as a tale of two poles, with the magnificent empires of the Andes and Mesoamerica at the center, and a vast, quiet emptiness in between. The Amazon basin was relegated to a footnote, a green void where only simple tribes roamed. The LiDAR maps and dark earth gardens have shattered that narrative completely, demanding nothing less than a rewrite of the entire human story in this hemisphere. This is not just adding a new chapter, it is rearranging the entire library of prehistory. We must now see the tropical lowlands not as a cultural backwater, but as a third major cradle of civilization in the Americas, a place of profound innovation operating on a scale that rivals its more famous counterparts. This discovery fundamentally shifts the center of gravity. It proves that the drive toward complex society was not a unique spark that happened in a few special places, but a widespread human potential that could flourish in wildly different environments. The Amazonian model of low-density urbanism, of garden cities and earthwork pyramids, stands as a powerful alternative to the classic centralized state. It enriches our understanding of the human experience by showing us there was more than one way to build a world. This correction is crucial because the old story was not just incomplete, it was biased. The academic focus on stone monuments and written records created a blind spot. Societies that expressed their genius in earth and ecology were systematically overlooked, their achievements dismissed or attributed to nature itself. Rewriting the history books is an act of long overdue justice, giving proper credit to the ingenuity of indigenous Amazonian peoples and acknowledging that their ancestors were master engineers of their environment. For future generations, this revised history fosters a more accurate and inclusive global perspective. It teaches that civilization is not a single, narrow path, but a branching tree of possibilities. It replaces a simplistic map of the past with a richer, more complex, and ultimately more truthful tapestry, one where the whispers from the jungle are finally heard as the monumental declarations they always were. Their legacy is a blueprint for a different kind of future. The ancient Amazonians achieved something modern societies still struggle to master. They built a complex civilization that enhanced its environment rather than depleting it. Their most direct gift to us is the recipe for Terra Preta, that miraculous dark earth. Modern science now recognizes this as a form of biochar, a powerful tool for carbon-negative farming. When organic matter is smoldered into charcoal and mixed into soil, it locks away carbon for centuries, improves water retention, and boosts fertility without chemical fertilizers. Researchers today are actively studying and replicating this ancient technique, seeing it as a viable path toward regenerative agriculture that can restore degraded land and combat climate change. It is a 2,000-year-old solution to a 21st century problem, proving that some of the most advanced sustainable technologies are not inventions, but rediscoveries. Their approach to food production was equally visionary. Instead of clearing vast monoculture fields, they practiced sophisticated agroforestry, cultivating diverse orchards within the forest itself. This method provided a reliable, year-round harvest of fruits, nuts, and medicines while preserving the canopy, protecting soil, and supporting wildlife. It was agriculture that increased biodiversity, a stark contrast to the habitat loss driven by modern industrial farming. Contemporary agroforestry projects in the Amazon and beyond now look to these ancient models, showing that we can produce abundant food by working with the structure of the forest, not by replacing it. Even their relationship with water holds profound lessons. They did not build massive dams to control rivers or drain wetlands for development. They built raised fields and fish weirs that harnessed the natural flood cycle, turning a potential disaster into an engine of abundance. This is a philosophy of resilience, of designing human systems that are flexible and adaptive to environmental rhythms. For modern cities facing increased flooding from climate change, these ancient hydraulic principles inspire new ideas in sponge city design, where urban landscapes are engineered to absorb and utilize water rather than simply funneling it away. The ultimate takeaway is one of profound hope. This lost civilization demonstrates that dense human populations and thriving ecosystems are not mutually exclusive. They achieved a symbiotic relationship where human activity actively enriched the living world around it. Studying their success moves beyond academic curiosity. It becomes a vital search for practical, time-tested models. In their earthworks and dark soil, we find not just a forgotten history, but a potential roadmap for a sustainable future, reminding us that the greatest engineering challenge is not to dominate nature, but to learn how to live within its generous, intelligent patterns. These stories are not just entertainment around a fire, they are the living archives of a people. Across the Amazon basin, indigenous oral traditions carry profound narratives that resonate with the archaeological discoveries now coming to light. Tales speak of ancestral heroes who shaped the land, teaching the first people how to build mounds, create fertile soil, and manage the great floods. There are recurring legends of powerful cities that once stood in the heart of the forest, places of learning and ceremony that were eventually abandoned or swallowed by the green embrace. One of the most widespread motifs is that of a great world-transforming flood, a deluge that reshaped the geography and forced communities to adapt and scatter. For generations, outsiders dismissed these accounts as symbolic myths or simple explanations for natural phenomena. But what if they are something far more significant? Cultural memories preserved across hundreds of years. The time scale is key. If the great urban networks began their decline roughly 650 years ago, that represents perhaps 20 to 30 generations. This is a span of time well within the reach of robust oral tradition, where core historical events can be encoded in story, ritual, and place names. The narratives are not literal history books, but they are historical in essence, preserving the emotional truth and monumental scale of a past world. Consider the most famous legend of all, El Dorado, the Gilded King and his city of gold that drove European explorers to obsession. While the conquistadors interpreted it with literal greed, the legend's deeper roots likely grew from indigenous accounts of powerful, wealthy societies in the interior. The gold may have been a metaphor for the dazzling abundance and sophistication these cultures represented, their mastery of the land itself appearing as a kind of riches to outside listeners. These stories are now being treated with new respect by researchers, not as fantasy, but as a form of ethnographic data. They offer a crucial human dimension that the silent earthworks cannot provide. Archaeology can show us the layout of a city, but myth can hint at how it felt to live there, what values were held sacred, and how its loss was understood. The stories of cities being reclaimed by the forest are particularly poignant. They do not always speak of a sudden, violent end, but sometimes of a deliberate return, a choice to let the buildings sink back into the earth, to allow the jungle to heal over a chapter that had closed. This transforms the narrative from one of mere catastrophe to one of cultural transition and resilience. Analyzing these legends gives us a window into how a society processes profound change. The blending of history with spiritual belief and identity is not a corruption of fact, but the way human communities make meaning from their collective experience. The myths become a bridge across time, allowing descendants to maintain a connection to a grand ancestral past, even as its physical traces fade from sight. They remind us that the end of a civilization is not just an archaeological event. It is a deeply human story of memory, loss, and the enduring need to explain where we came from. This intertwining of earth and story suggests that the final chapter of this lost world is still being written, not in soil, but in the voices that continue to pass its echo down through the generations. The quiet river highways of the Amazon may have connected to a world far beyond the jungle. While this civilization was a brilliant adaptation to its own environment, a tantalizing question now emerges. Was it an isolated island of innovation, or was it part of a vast, humming network of exchange that spanned the entire continent? The evidence, though subtle, points toward a world that was surprisingly interconnected. On archaeological sites deep in the Amazon basin, researchers have uncovered exotic treasures that tell a story of long journeys. Perhaps the most telling are the shells of the spondylus, a thorny oyster that lives only in the warm waters of the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of what is now Ecuador. These bright orange and purple shells were not just beautiful trinkets. For Andean cultures like the Inca, they held immense spiritual value associated with water, fertility, and divinity. Finding fragments of these Pacific shells in Amazonian settlements, hundreds of miles from their source and over the formidable barrier of the Andes Mountains, is a powerful clue. It suggests these were not random objects but items of prestige and meaning, carried along established trade routes through mountain passes or down river systems. The exchange likely flowed both ways. The Amazon was a legendary source of other precious goods, like vibrant parrot feathers used in ceremonial regalia, potent medicinal plants unknown in the highlands, and possibly even cacao. The movement was not just of objects but of ideas. Certain pottery styles found in the western Amazon share distinctive design motifs with contemporary cultures in the Andes, hinting at a flow of artistic concepts or even the movement of skilled artisans themselves. This does not mean the Amazon was a mere satellite of the Andean empires. Rather, it positions the garden cities as active participants in a hemispheric dialogue. They were a powerhouse of ecological knowledge and unique resources, engaging in a give and take that enriched all involved. The nature of this contact is still being carefully investigated. Were there direct, long-distance trade caravans, or did goods pass through a chain of intermediaries, moving from community to community over generations? The intensity of this interaction is a key puzzle. It likely varied over time and distance, with Western Amazonian societies having more direct contact, while Eastern networks remained more self-contained. What is becoming clear is that the pre-Columbian Americas were not a collection of separate, silent worlds. They were a dynamic, interconnected hemisphere, linked by threads of commerce and culture. Placing the Amazon firmly within this broader context transforms it from a fascinating anomaly into a central player in the human story of the Americas. It reveals a continent alive with exchange, where ideas about engineering, astronomy, and art may have circulated along trails we are only beginning to trace. This vision of a connected ancient world challenges our modern maps and invites us to listen for the echoes of conversation that once crossed mountains and rivers, binding diverse civilizations into a single, complex tapestry of human achievement. The morning sun would filter through the thatched palm roofs, warming the packed earth floors of homes built upon a carefully sculpted mound. From this vantage point, a resident could look out over the heart of their world, a vast open plaza where the community's life pulsed. The air carried a rich tapestry of scents, the fertile, earthy aroma of the nearby Terra Preta gardens mingling with the smell of fish smoking over slow fires and the sweet perfume of flowering fruit trees. This was not a silent, empty landscape, but a vibrant and densely woven social fabric. The day began with purpose. Farmers would walk to their forest gardens not to clear land but to tend it. They checked on the growth of manioc in the dark earth plots and harvested ripe fruits from the carefully managed orchards of Brazil nut, cocoa, and peach palm. Their work was an act of continuation, nurturing a landscape their ancestors had designed for abundance. On the waterways, the rhythm was just as steady. Canoes hollowed from massive trunks glided along the straight, engineered canals. They carried baskets of produce from outlying garden villages, bundles of palm fiber for weaving, and perhaps exotic goods like colorful feathers or polished stones obtained through longer trade networks. The canals were not just transportation routes, they were the bustling streets of this aquatic city, connecting neighborhoods and fostering a constant flow of people and goods. In the settlement's quieter corners, the sound of tapping and scraping would signal the work of artisans. Potters coiled clay into elegant vessels, etching them with geometric patterns that held cultural meaning, their kilns adding a mineral scent to the air. Weavers worked with cotton and fibers, creating textiles for clothing and ceremonial use. Each craft was a thread in the community's economic and cultural tapestry, a specialization that spoke of a society with surplus and shared aesthetic values. Much of this daily industry was coordinated. Community labor groups, perhaps organized by family lineage or under the guidance of a respected leader, would gather for collective projects. Their task might be to clear silt from a crucial canal, to repair a section of the raised causeway after the rains, or to reinforce the embankments around the central plaza. This work was more than maintenance, it was a social ritual, a reaffirmation of shared responsibility and collective identity. The hum of conversation and coordinated effort would have been a constant backdrop. And underpinning it all was a calendar of ritual. The grand pyramidal platforms and geometric earthworks were not abandoned between ceremonies. Priests or spiritual leaders would prepare in dedicated spaces, studying celestial movements to determine the timing for planting or harvest festivals. The plaza itself was a stage being set for events that connected the community to the ancestors and the forces of nature, events that gave meaning to the labor and solidified the social order. To envision this daily rhythm is to perform a vital act of historical empathy. It transforms sterile labels like low-density urbanism into a relatable human experience. We are no longer just analyzing soil samples and mapping ditches. We are glimpsing a mother calling a child in from the garden, a craftsman proud of a newly fired pot, a group sharing a meal after a day maintaining the communal earthworks. This emotional connection bridges the centuries. It reminds us that the fingerprints on a piece of ancient pottery were left by someone with hopes, skills, and a place in a complex world. By listening for the echoes of their daily lives, we do more than reconstruct a lost civilization. We begin to remember our shared humanity with the people who once thrived in the heart of the green. Their story is a mirror held up to our own time. The forgotten civilization of the Amazon is far more than an archaeological curiosity. It is a profound testament to human brilliance, a masterclass in ecological adaptation, and a haunting reminder of our shared fragility. From the silent, geometric geoglyphs to the sprawling urban networks unveiled by Lidar, we are not just uncovering lost cities, we are witnessing a historical revolution. Every new scan, every patch of dark earth, rewrites the narrative of the Amazon's past and, by extension, the story of humanity itself. This lost world offers us three profound lessons that echo across the centuries. First, it demonstrates a model of sustainable coexistence with nature that feels urgently relevant. They did not conquer their environment, they conversed with it, engineering a civilization that enhanced the forest's bounty rather than depleting it. Their Terra, Preta and managed orchards stand as a blueprint for a regenerative future. Second, their garden cities reveal the stunning diversity of human social organization. Civilization is not a single path defined by stone pyramids and emperors. It is a spectrum of possibilities. They achieved complexity through networks, not just through centralization, proving there are many ways to build a society. And third, their disappearance speaks to the fragility of even the most ingenious and resilient societies when confronted with an unforeseen external shock. It is a sobering lesson in humility, reminding us that no achievement, no matter how grand, is permanent. As our technology peels back more of the jungle's secrets, we must match our curiosity with responsibility. This heritage demands respect, collaborative research with descendant communities, and an urgent commitment to protect it from modern threats. The lost cities are not mere relics to be catalogued. They are beacons from the past, casting a long light toward our future. They ask us to reconsider what progress means, to value different kinds of knowledge, and to remember that the greatest monuments we can leave may not be made of stone, but of a healthy, living world. If this journey into a hidden world has captivated you, there are countless more mysteries waiting to be explored. Subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest enigmas, and share your thoughts on these astounding discoveries in the comments below. What lesson from the Amazon's lost civilization resonates most with you? The conversation is just beginning.